Journalism is printing what someone else does, not want printed. Everything else is public relations. George Orwell. All right. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, technologically incompetent DL, America's most objective libertarian. Two titles there. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. What do you mean by that, DL? Technologically incompetent. Well, I see the comments were already fired up, yelling at me about sound. By the way, folks, I just want to point this out. All caps, regular caps, it's not really a difference there. I'm just saying. Just like, hey, no sound. I could see that. I swear I clicked the button though this morning. I swear I clicked it and I was like, I looked, I was like, I clicked that button, but I guess I didn't. So anyway, uh, we got it worked out. We're good. What are we talking about today? Well, I figured I would just go through some news. I'm trying to catch my breath on some of these topics. The challenge is that some of these topics take a little bit of time for me to dig into, and so that I can come to you and with a reasonable opinion that makes sense. And so sometimes I have to like spend a little bit of time, like the Abrego Garcia. I went through like 30 court documents, and each one of them was like at least 3 pages. Okay, so I'd like, I mean, I skimmed some of them, just because at that time when I went through them, the older ones, the ones from 2019, those were the ones that I was more interested in. But so sometimes it does take a bit of time to put these together, and then I got to try to figure out like, okay, what can I do right now while I'm waiting, while I'm waiting through this, and it could be a challenge because then if I pick some other topic, then that one might be kind of lengthy to dive into. So it could be a bit of a challenge, but we've got something today. First, let's talk about a little update on my progress here. So I just want to show you where I am with my 30 days of 30 hours in 30 days. So I've got it up on the screen here, and I know I'm covering some of it, so I apologize. The right hand portion is the most important part, but it's just like telling me it's like, all right, here's the bar for where you are in terms of getting 30 hours in the last rolling 30 days, and you can see that it says 22.1 hours out of 30. Now you might say, well, you only got like you know less than 8 hours to do that. That's probably very very doable by the end of the month. And yes, in a way, you're correct. But I still need to, like, I'm probably still going to stream this weekend just to make sure, because it's a rolling. So as I get a one new day, one old day drops off in that 30-day span, and that drop off, depending on like if something I did that's an hour and a half drops off, and then in the new day, I only do like say 45 minutes. Well, then I've got 45-minute loss, right? And so, it can fluctuate a little bit. But I'm feeling pretty confident that we're going to make this 30 hours of streaming in 30 days. Now I have to maintain that after the fact, which I think I've been sitting down and thinking about ways to ensure that I can make that happen. Potentially maybe once a month, I'll just do one nice long stream to make up for, any hours that I didn't get to, whatever. I'll figure it out. I've got some ideas that I'm juggling around. So, anyway, let's get into this. Let's talk about, um, let's talk about some different headlines, I guess, or different things that are just out there. The first is this. I saw this. Was it this morning, or maybe I think it was just this morning. It's called the mom bonus. Let me pull this up on the screen here, and we'll talk about this real quick. So this is an article from The Hill, and it says Trump says bonuses for moms. Let's zoom this in a little bit so that y'all can see. There we go. That didn't. There we go. I think we're getting there. Yeah, that's good enough. Trump says bonuses for moms after they have child sounds like a good idea. Okay, well, okay, so it just sounds like it's not a guarantee. So let's check out the article. Man, they just make websites very terrible to navigate these days, don't they? Let's see here. How do I don't want that. Goodness. All right. So while I was okay, so it's trying to play this video on top of what I'm trying to read. Websites. Goodness. All right. President Trump on Tuesday signaled support to reporters about a proposal to give moms bonuses when they have a child amid reports the White House is looking at ways to bring up the nation's birth rates. Trump was pressed by the media Tuesday afternoon about whether he was considering bonuses for moms whenever they have a child, following reports his administration heard a similar pitch that could mean up to $5,000 in extra cash for moms after giving birth. Okay, let's just pressed by the media. With all the things going on, what's reported that the media pressed him on is about bonuses for moms. Don't get me wrong, moms, y'all are great. Wish my mom was still here, right? I call her up every day like I did before she passed away. Um, so this is not, I'm not talking down about moms or would be moms, but really that's the pressing issue of the day. There's nothing else that they can talk about that's pressing, like, I don't know, all these deportations that are happening. What else we got? We've got the tariffs. You know, we've got issues with Iran, which seems to have settled down a little bit. Yeah, like there's all these other, but that's the one that they're going to press him on, or at least that's how it's reported. you Anyway, sounds like a good idea to me. Trump said briefly before jumping to another question. The New York Times reported Monday that the so-called baby bonus idea is just one of a suite of proposals aimed at raising the country's birth rates that Trump aides have heard in recent weeks as they meet with experts and advocates. Another idea pitch presented to the White House called for more funding efforts to educate women about their menstrual cycles, the newspaper reported. The idea was reportedly, quote, in part so they could better understand when they are ovulating, end quote. Really? We're going to we're going to try to educate women about their menstrual cycles, and if only they would just know more about their menstrual cycle, why they would know when they're ovulating, and then they would be like, hey, I'm ovulating, I better go get knocked up. Is that, I mean, that's how it comes across. like, like as if people don't normally want to enjoy intimacy with each other. Like, no, perhaps you can do things so that people will, I don't know, be less stressed, have less time that they're putting into, making money, going to work, all these good things, right? Maybe you can do things that will just simply free up their time. Right? But no, you want to educate women on something that they pretty much already know about. Right? Like, who doesn't know? And there are resources all over the internet. I could find an app right now that I could download if I was a woman, which I'm not, because there is a specific definition of a woman and I don't fit it no matter what. And so I could download an app and then I could just start tracking everything and it will tell me, hey, this is the time. Catholics have been doing this forever, since before technology, right? So, like, this is just all absurd. But the really absurd part here, let's go back, is, where was it? Oh yeah, right here. It said the administration heard a similar pitch that could mean up to $5,000 in extra cash for moms. Okay, I'll just highlight that. Kind of highlight it. There, it's highlighted. Admit up to. Does anybody catching what's going on here? How it's written? Up to $5,000 in extra cash. No, that's if you have $5,000 to give to people, that's because you took $5,000 from people. Stop taking money from people, and you won't have to play these linguistic games of $5,000 extra. It's not extra. It's our money to begin with. We pay like unless you don't pay any taxes, it's your money. Maybe not directly. I mean, I get it. All the money goes into one big pool and blah blah blah, and it gets divvied out into different. But it's still your money. It's taxpayer money. This is not extra cash. They're writing it as if the government has its own money. It doesn't. The government doesn't have any of its own money. It's not giving you extra cash because it took it from you. Imagine if I come to your house, I knock on the door, and I'm like, "Give me $10 now," and I point a gun at you, and then you give me your $10, and I'm like, "All right, you paid your tax for this week. Next week I'll be back. You better have me $10, right?" But then let's say between now and next week, I decide that I want you to do something. So I'm like, "Hey, how about I give you $5 extra?" Would you be like, "Wow, that's so kind of—" I mean, you might, because obviously if I'm a gangster stealing money from you, then perhaps you don't wanna upset me so that I'll demand more. But in your mind, at least, you're not gonna be fooled. You're gonna be like, "Yeah, you took that money from me in the first place, and I would have already had that $5 had you not taken the 10 from me." So it's just this whole thing is absurd. And this is why I preach and I harp on reading and understanding what you've read. Because even The Hill, which I don't know what kind of leaning it has, I tend to think of it as somewhat neutral, the way, I mean, but you could probably parse it out to left or right. But like The Hill, it doesn't matter. All of them are going to say something like this. You're never going to see something that says, following reports, his administration heard a similar pitch that could mean $5,000 of your own money given back to you after giving birth. Like, but that would be more accurate assessment because again, they took it from you. So that's amusing in a very sad sense. And I doubt too many people have picked up on it. Let's go to a video. This is Senator Warren. Honestly, until I saw this video, I didn't think like I didn't actively think this, but I would have thought there wasn't anything for me to talk about from Senator Warren because I'm like what are you saying that's of any importance that I would have to comment on? Like we all know you're crazy. You lied about being Native American, blah blah blah, like you're a terrible senator, like whatever. But no, this video came out and I was like, holy wow. So you guys got to see this or listen to it if you're on podcast. Here we go.
Do you regret saying that President Biden had a mental acuity? He had a sharpness to him. You said that up until July of last year.
Okay. So she's on a podcast. I don't know who this gentleman is. Okay. But pay attention to just the tone of his voice. That's going to become important. So just listen to this.
I said what I believe to be true.
And you think he was as sharp as you?
Okay. If you're not watching, you missed it. But if you saw it, the man asked, he says, "Do you think he's as sharp as you?" And she literally chokes back a laugh. She's like, and like, because she wanted to be like, "No, you can tell." She wanted to be like, "Psh, no, that man isn't as sharp as me. He hasn't been as sharp as me in a decade. I don't know if it's that long, but she wanted to say something, and she knows she can't. So that was just beautiful. All right, let's keep listening.
Um, I said I had not seen decline.
Okay, so again, you're missing the facial expressions if you're not watching. She looked at him, she kind of cocks her head to the left, and then he's sitting across from her, and he cocks his head to the right. And he looked at her like, "For real? Come on now. Don't play games with me, girl." That's I mean, he's not like he's not goofy like that. I'm just using that just to have fun. Just take it easy, people. All right, so anyway, let's listen.
And I hadn't. at that point.
You did not see any decline from 2024 Joe Biden to 2021 Joe Biden?
Not when I said that. You know, the thing is, he was
She's struggling.
sharp. He was on his feet. I saw him live event. I had meetings with him a couple of times.
Senator, on his feet is not praise.
On his feet. He was standing. He's sharp. He's a sharp man. Look, I'm not trying to make fun of a guy. Look, when age comes for us all, nothing wrong with that. I'm not making fun of a man who has just simply gone the way that life goes, right? Which is you get old and you're not what you used to be. If you were a great athlete when you're 81, 90, you're not a great athlete anymore. Now, for many people, they're able to maintain some of their physical health so that they're above their peers. And that's great. I love that. But you're just not what you used to be. And so if somebody has to describe you as on your feet, like that is, and then and then listen to his and you can see her. She's kind of like chuckling. She's like, "Oh yeah, you're talking." She knows he's right. She knows this. Let's continue.
He can speak in sentences is not praise.
All right, fair.
He can speak in sentences. So again, I'm not making fun of the former president for normal age decline. That comes for us all, right? Or death, right? One of the two. Very, very few people end up, very old with relatively decent health and relatively sharp for their age, right? Most people start declining. So again, no shame in that. So I'm not making fun of the president, but we should make fun of Senator Pocahontas here, who is clearly she clearly knows I can't lie my way out of this.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Look,
Here it is.
The question is, what are we going to do now?
Okay.
Like, she's choking back a laugh. At one point, you can see she's like got this huge grin on her face because she's like, "Yeah, no, no way that he's sharper than me." And then after she gets pressed, he's like, "Come on, that's not really praise now. Come on, come on. That's like that like that's a great thing if you're in decline. I get it." And then she's like, "Look, you know what we really need to be talking about?" She doesn't want to be held accountable for her words, but she should be. Now, what makes that clip even worse for her, in my opinion, is whoever that guy is, he says it with such a cordial tone. Like he's like, "Come on, that's not praise." Like he's like such a nice. I don't know who this guy is. Like I've never seen him before. I don't know who he is, but just from that one clip, I'm like, man, that dude seems like a really, really nice guy, and he's able to ask penetrating questions without seeming hostile. And that's a great skill. I think I don't know if he's developed that skill or if that's just his natural demeanor, but I think it's awesome because I can't do that. Like if I would, I'd have been like, come on, for real. You don't really believe that, do you? I would have been like hands on my hips. You know, that meme where the guy's like, I would have like, I just think that's so hilarious. He's not convinced. She doesn't believe what she says either. That's again why she shifts to like, what are we going to do now? She's avoiding responsibility. And we need to push back and hold people accountable. Like, no, 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 no. You said this. Now, maybe you wanted Trump to win, right? And that's fine. Maybe you wanted him to win. You didn't want Biden. You didn't want Kamala. You didn't want anybody the Democrats were put up. That's fine. What you should want is you should want our people in government that we've elected to be honest with you. If somebody is in decline and they're running the country or they have a particular position, you should be honest enough to say, no, this person needs to step down. It's time. Time comes for us all. And right now it has your number. And you should be comfortable saying that. And then when your time comes, you should know, like, hey, my time is up. I've got to go. Personally, I don't think anybody should be running the country like that's like older than what? I don't know, 70. I just feel like we would be like it's weird. We have all these conversations about like DEI and all this other stuff, right? And diversity, and like I don't know, I've not taken a look, and maybe I will go dig it up, but it seems to me that there's an overabundance of septenarian. Is it septenarians? Yeah, septenarians and septuagenarians. So it's there's an overabundance of septuagenarians and octogenarians, right? 70 and 80-year-old people in government. And we need to dial that back, not because of diversity. We need to dial it back because perhaps it should be the norm that you retire before your cognitive abilities force you to. Like perhaps, I mean, just hear me out, folks. Like, let's say, like people that get into office, they want to have a legacy. Usually, most of those kind of people, they want to leave behind a legacy. Do you want your legacy actually to be, I worked and started making bad decisions because I was in decline and I didn't pull myself out at a responsible time? I mean, that's basically like, hey, that'd be like me trying to say that I was being responsible this last Sunday when I was drinking too much, because it was Easter, and like, no, you should have recognized when enough was enough, even though you weren't driving, even all this other, and dial it back. That way you weren't in pain for the next 2 days. Like we need to start holding people accountable for their decisions, and let them know, like, hey, you need to um, you need to learn when to say when. If you go back to some of the interviews that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had, they asked her, they were like, hey, you've been on the Supreme Court for quite a while. You're up there in age, and you've got cancer diagnosis and all this other stuff. So, like, when are you going to retire? And she said, as long as I am cognitively capable of doing my job, I will stay here. And she said, the moment that I determine that I am not cognitively capable, I will be stepping down. Okay, respect. I can respect that. And I actually don't mind having old people, if you will, as Supreme Court justices. I think that's an area where we tend to see wisdom, not always, but we tend to see wisdom from our older generation. So if you're cognitively healthy and you're able to do your job, then that's the area where I wouldn't mind having older people necessarily. But when you've got a politics there's a lot to politics. There's a lot to going on in the world. We should expect that our representatives know when to take a bow. Just take, step out. All right. So enough on that one. What else do we got? This video. So this next one is of Tim Pool at the White House. He's been getting a lot of flack lately, and I've been giving him some of it myself. So he was at the White House for a press conference, and let's take a look and see what's going on here.
Many of the news organizations that are represented.
All right, so let's pause it for just a second. First and foremost, a lot of people were giving him flack for what he wore to the White House for the press conference. Now, if you don't know this, the White House set up this new program where podcasters could basically be part of the new media. That's cool. I like that. And if you're not watching, if you're just listening on Spotify or whatnot, he's wearing his traditional beanie. He's got a t-shirt on, and he's got a zip up like hoodie, and then some jeans. Right. So looked like he's going to the skate park, and a lot of people are giving him grief over that. I get it. And I kind of agree. Okay. Now, ultimately, I don't particularly care. It's not an item that's high on my priority list. I do think I think it's appropriate to put on at least business casual when you go to the White House. Now, I will say this. Here's an image of him. Let me put this image up on the screen. So this is him interviewing Kristi Noem. And I think here, this is quite appropriate. Why? Because he's in his element. So if you come on my show, I can dress the way that's consistent for my show. So if I always wear a sport coat on my show, which there's a few out there that do, Like I think Glenn Greenwald wears a full on tie and shirt. So there are some folks that do dress up for their podcast, and that's fine. And then you should always dress up. Like if somebody, now if your podcast is just you wearing a beanie and a t-shirt, okay. Even if you're interviewing the president, right? I think that would be acceptable. If they come to you, they come into your element. Okay. But when you go into somebody else's element, I think you need to go in there with the decorum that's generally expected. So I would argue that the criticism of Tim on that is fair. I wouldn't spend a lot of time on it, to be honest, though. Like, there's no reason to spend a lot of time. And in fact, let's go back to this video and we're going to listen, because out of this clip, there's actually more that's an issue. And I think he got the first question. I could be wrong on that. So, but let's listen to what he has to say.
Presented in this room have marched in lockstep on false narratives, such as the Very Fine People hoax, the Covington smear, and now what's being called the Maryland Man hoax, where an MS-13 gang member adjudicated by 2 different judges, I believe, is just simply being referred to as a Maryland Man over and over again. Now, in an effort from the White House to expand access to new companies, you've created this new media seat. So I'm wondering if you can comment on, following this expansion, you've had numerous outlets disparage the companies that you've had sit here, as well as the reporters. I'm wondering if you could comment on the unprofessional behavior, as well as elaborate if there's any plans to expand access to new companies.
Sure. Well, we certainly welcome.
Okay. So I just stop it there. So I think he had the first question. And his question was basically, if you say there's the mainstream media and the alternate media, right? The alt media. And he's part of the alt media. And he's like, so the mainstream media, they lied about this, they lied about this, and there's this news story. And his question is basically, remember the time 8 years ago when the media said this thing, and then remember 6 years ago when they said this other thing, and then now they say this thing. They're talking trash about the new guys. What do you have to say about it? His first question was to the administration, not about anything that Donald Trump has been doing. And he's moving quickly on a lot of things. And there's a lot of things that are controversial right now. And rather than trying to hold their feet to the fire, his first question is basically, what are you going to do about the bullies in the schoolyard, the journalism schoolyard? Are you you got something to say about them? What? Really? That's your question? Like, come on. I'm not watching the I'm not watching the White House press secretary so that I can hear the White House's opinion on some other podcaster and what they think about me. Right? Like I'm not listening for that. I mean, if it comes up, then sure, I'll address it. But I'm listening, like hoping for some questions about the events that pertain to the White House. That's what I want to hear about. Now, what's interesting is that Tim, and I was not joking when I said 8 and 6 years. The Very Fine People, do you know how old that is? This is 2025. That's a reference from 2017 when Trump had said from the Charlottesville riot, he said, quote, there was very fine people on both sides. And he was referring to protesters and counter protesters at the rally, which was organized by white nationalists to oppose the removal of Robert E. Lee statue. Okay, so that's the event he's talking about. We're digging up the past, and he's not the only one to do that. Like he dug up this event just recently, and then I saw an article from MSNBC from a former Libertarian Party chair who was talking about that event too, and the overlap of some alleged impact that he believes it had on the Libertarian Party. And so I'm like, why are people digging up? Like, it's not really that relevant. In neither case, actually. Like, it's not okay, fine. The new media, I'm sorry, the old media, the old guard, they're engaging in mistruths. Do they only happen once every 6 or so years? Like, you had to go back 6 and 8 years ago to find your first 2 examples, but then you were able to find one that you believe is today, current. You couldn't find all 3 within the last couple of months? Like, really? That just to me, this is a poor question. And I look at it and I say, New media, same as the old media, right? They're asking softball questions. And the irony, in my opinion, is that his first two examples I agree with. The very fine people comment that Trump made was blown out of proportion by the media. The Covington scandal, which was the high school students that were confronted by protesters in Washington, D.C., um, that was blown up. And that actually ended up, the Covington High School students sued multiple media outlets and they settled and it wasn't disclosed. So, like, those were a big deal, right? And they did get them wrong. I agree with him on that. But then on the Maryland man, he said two judges adjudicated that he was an MS-13 gang member. That's not really true. Like the way that's being phrased is people say like, oh, two courts adjudicated or two courts ruled that he was a MS-13 gang member. That's actually not true because it misleads people into believing that the judges reviewed the allegations, heard from both sides, and then rendered a decision. That did not happen. What happened was Abrego Garcia had went before the court and he tried to apply for asylum. He tried to apply for withholding of removal. He also tried to apply for CAT, which is Convention Against Torture, I believe. Basically saying like, hey, look, he wanted a withholding saying, please don't send me back to El Salvador because my life will be in danger there. Here's why I left. Shows you, here's the evidence to say that my life would be in danger by the 18th Street gang. And then um, he applied for CAT and said, look, if you send me back there, I could be tortured and really bad things could happen to me. And so what the court ruled, if you go there, the only ruling that it actually made was deny asylum, grant withholding, deny CAT. That's what it ruled. It did not make any judgment specifically on whether or not he was an MS-13 gang member. What it did is it said, the government already has documents that we generally accept as fact. And then they said, you're looking to be not paroled. You're looking to get bond. Can you demonstrate that you're not a threat? They basically just took the information at face value. What the court also did, if people would read it, it said that the gang field interview sheet, it said that it had some internal conflicts. In other words, it was inconsistent. So they noted it. But they said, despite that, because we generally accept the I-213 and the GFIS, because we generally consider them legitimate documents, we're accepting them. They accepted the information by default. That's not the same as ruling. In other words, making a very explicit decision that, yes, we believe this is true. They did not do that. And yet Tim points, like in his own question, about how the old media would kind of manipulate the facts to present a narrative. He did the very same thing. The very same thing. He's like, he called it a hoax. Well, he said what's called as a hoax. Okay. But he basically he said it's basically a hoax because he lumps it in with other hoaxes. And then he repeats something that's not entirely true. And so I think even whether this was the first question or the second question, I think he's basically doing the same thing. Now, the same thing as what? Compared to what? Let's take a look. Here's an old image from way back in the day. Okay. Republicans mock Obama for softball interviews. This is dated August 17th, 2012. Republicans are taking President Obama to task for evading public questioning by the White House press corps for more than 8 weeks, while instead granting a series of interviews to entertainment media outlets with whom he discussed largely frivolous subjects. And if you were to go back and look, there were all kind of things like people asked him about his clothes. They were like, "Oh, why are you such a snappy dresser?" I think it was one of them. Like not that exact question, but they basically asked him about, the clothes, the clothing choices, like all the things that Obama was doing, and that's what they saw fit to ask him. Well, all the things the Trump administration is doing, and that's what Tim Pool saw fit to ask them. Hey, what are you going to do about the bullies in the journalism schoolyard? You got something to say about that? Nobody cares, Tim. Like the reason you're popular is because people don't like the mainstream media. You don't need to continue with that. You get like we've got that figured out. Joe Rogan, Tim Pool, all these other ones that are these big players. One of the reasons they're popular is because of the mistrust in the media. We don't need to rehash that argument. You don't need to bring up stuff from 6 and 8 years ago. You can actually start asking real questions about the administration. You could say like, "Hey, what's your plan to deal with all these judges that seemingly keep coming out against you?" In this in your plans for immigration. You could ask him some serious tough questions. You could say, "Hey, look, there've been a lot of reports about people deported and they're having debates back and forth whether or not it's legitimate use of your power, but here's the question that I have. Before the election, Donald Trump ran on getting out violent criminals. What percentage of all the people that you've deported are violent criminals? How many violent criminals do you anticipate remain that you need to go and grab? Can you make a guess? Can you make an estimated, an educated guess on how many more you got left, right? How many have you sent out now? Okay, you deported 238. According to the mainstream media, only 32 of them had violent records. Can you confirm that? Is that your understanding? If it is not, how many? Is it more? Is it fewer? Right? Like he could ask a bunch of penetrating questions, but instead he wants to know about the bully in the schoolyard. That's what he wants to know about. So we're right back where we were when Obama was president and the Republicans, the people on the right, they were complaining that the media was taking it easy on them. They were, and this is what happens, right? If it's a Democrat in the office, the mainstream media, they will make it easy on them. If there's a Republican in the office, the right-wing crowd, podcasters and that media, will take it easy on them, right? And they frame things differently. It's all team sports. So we should probably start holding a media accountable and say, wait a minute, if you're just going to go and act like the mainstream media, which they all do, you know why? For access. It's about access. Because if you ask too tough of a question, then they're going to cut your access. Or they're going to argue with you and try to say that you're asking in bad faith and whatnot. But if all of them were to do it, then that leaves them no choice but to have to deal with the tough questions. Or if enough of them did it, then enough of them could report and say, hey, we all got booted because your administration doesn't want to hear tough questions. And guess what? The outlets on the right, the outlets on the left, we were all trying to ask tough questions and the administration kicked us both out. What does that tell you about the administration? Right? And you would force the administration's hand to play ball. But journalists are not into doing that. They want to play softball with their guy and hardball with the other people's guy. So whatever. All right. Speaking of Maryland man, just man, no manned. It's like when you add an S to words. Anyway, let's see here. Here's another video. This is interesting. So speaking of framing a narrative, let's take a look.
He was living in Maryland, designated MS-13 terrorist, and Donald Trump deported him. How does that make you feel?
I feel safer.
He gotta go. He gotta go.
Need to go. I mean, that's it.
But he was a father.
But he's still a terrorist.
Okay. I mean, but there's children living without fathers now.
He should have picked and choose, so he picked to be a terrorist instead of worrying about his children.
The Democrats, they
So that's very interesting. I love that answer, believe it or not. She said he had to choose between the two, the family, and he chose to be a terrorist. You know what's happening? This is propaganda, folks. This is propaganda. So, and a lot of people were picking this out because, like, when I saw some of the comments on social media, There was a mix of people that were buying into it and saying, yeah, yeah, even the Maryland people don't want this guy. And then there were other people that were like, somewhere between like that video is either staged or it's propaganda or they were criticizing it, right? But I want you to think about it. She said he chose to be a terrorist. So you know how he became a terrorist? He became a terrorist in January when the president decided, hey, guess what? MS-13 and the Tren de Aragua, they are terrorists. I'm designating them as terrorists, right? That's when he became. So the man who was allegedly MS-13 back in 2019 was designated a terrorist in 2025, is now being presented to citizens of Maryland as a terrorist. And they're like, well, he shouldn't have chose to be a terrorist. He shouldn't have chose in 2019 or earlier to be the terrorist that he was designated in 2025. Do you see the problem here? Like, that's how propaganda works. You say the scary word and people basically tell you what you want to hear. Let's keep listening.
Want him back. They say he was wrongfully deported. He has a wife and a kid who's a citizen. They're calling this a national emergency. Is this a national emergency?
I wouldn't call it a national emergency. We got more things going on.
We have more things, more fish to fry.
I just found out about it, so I don't think so. What kind of national emergency? For what? What is the emergency for?
Ain't no national emergency, no.
He was accused of hitting his wife twice and was a suspected human smuggler. Was he wrongfully deported?
No, he need to go.
If he's a smuggler, yeah, he need to be deported.
Okay. If he's a smuggler. So if you go and you look this up, the story behind the smuggler is he was driving with people in his car. He gets pulled over in Tennessee by the Tennessee Highway Patrol, THP. THP radios it in, calls the FBI. Whatever information was given to them, the FBI ultimately said, yeah, let him go. Because THP said, I think he might be a human smuggler. Now, what we don't have is, why did the police think that he was a smuggler? And a lot of people are like, oh, you trust the FBI? Like, well, no, but I don't trust the police either, right? He could just be wrong. What evidence did he have other than people in his car? Like, if I'm riding around with some Hispanic friends and I get pulled over and the police go, I think he's a human smuggler. Why? Because there's some Chicanos back there? Like, for real? That's not like, you need more than that to suspect. I mean, you should. When the government suspects you of something, that is not guilt. And they can suspect you because they're making stuff up, which has happened, or because they just got it wrong. But I think right now, everybody's in this like, oh my God, the illegal immigrants. What are we going to do? Run, the sky is falling. I think that's where we are right now. And so a lot of people are overinterpreting what they see. And that's exactly what's going on here. He kind of phrases it correctly. He's like, hey, he was accused twice of domestic violence. So again, domestic violence it's possible that he's just a plain old abuser. It's very possible. A number of other things are possible too. It's possible that his wife made it all up. It's possible that she was the aggressor and that maybe he just came back disproportionately. It's possible that he was the aggressor. She called the police and he did nothing wrong. Basically, she made it all up, right? Like, there's any number of scenarios that could have played out. We have no idea which one. Now, today, she's telling everybody, well, out of the abundance of caution, I called the police, right? So that's her story. Now, that could just be what the lawyers are informing her to say when she's being asked things by the media. Like, I don't know. But what I do know is he was not convicted of it. And we have no evidence of what exactly happened. We also don't have any evidence that we can look at and say confidently that, yes, he probably was human trafficking. We just have allegations. And so they're going out and they're going to people in Maryland and they're like, hey, he's supposedly a dad, but the government said he was a terrorist. He's a human smuggler. He's this, he's that. Do you want him here? Of course, people are going to say no when you phrase it that way. You have in no way communicated the reasonable doubt in any of that.
Better to be safe than sorry.
Your
Oh,
senator here, Chris Van Hollen, he flew to El Salvador where this guy was deported. He met with them, had lunch with them, had margaritas on the table. What's up with your senator?
I have no idea, but I do believe that was a waste of taxpayer dollars.
okay. I agree with that. I don't know that there's any valuable purpose in our Congress members flying to El Salvador to get photo ops. I think that's more like, look at me, look what I'm doing, right? Rather, because like, what are you going to do? This has to be settled between the president of the United States and the president of El Salvador. And if the president of the United States is like, yeah, I don't want him back, and the president of El Salvador is like, I'm not sending him back, what exactly is a single senator going to do? Are they going to go and learn something interesting and be like, oh no, look at this? I mean, everybody thinks he's a terrorist, right? So then let's continue.
You agreeing with somebody whooping their
Oh, let's back that
I
up.
believe that was a waste of taxpayer dollars.
Okay, so they asked her about, they were like, hey, he was having margaritas with the senator that went out there. What actually happened and what came out later was there was an initial photo and the two men had water. Then a few moments later, there was another photo where El Salvador President Bukele had brought out what appeared to be, I don't even think they were actual real margaritas, but what looked like margaritas for a photo op to make it look like, look at this guy, look how we're treating him. And he's getting such great treatment, that he's even getting a margarita. Come on now, people, think about this. The man got sent to a third world prison for terrorists. Do you really believe that people in government are going there who have no power to affect change? Do you think they're going there and really honestly having margaritas with him? Like, remember the video a few moments ago, the guy talking to Elizabeth Warren? I'm going to give you the same look. Like, come on, folks. We know better.
You agreeing with somebody whooping their wife, terrorizing where you live, then you don't need to live here either.
Senator Van Hollen, you need to come see me, Mr. Coley, because you doing like that. You need to take care of home before you go to other states.
He went to El Salvador.
Oh, that's another country. Excuse me.
What has Senator Chris Van Hollen ever done for you?
Nothing.
Nothing. For me, nothing.
Nothing that I know of.
He ain't do me. I can admit that.
I've never even heard of this person.
Do you want Kilmar Abrego Garcia, this quote unquote Maryland dad, living back in Maryland?
No. No.
No.
No.
Not if he's doing trafficking, no. Why the want somebody like that back? No.
What is your message to the Democrats who really want him back in your community?
Why would you want that in my community? Bring it to your community and see how long you like it up there.
Leave them, or y'all go over there with them.
You're focused on the wrong thing.
If they illegal come.
All right. So that's enough of that video. Okay. So ultimately, I think that people are being bamboozled. That reminded me of this video. This is an old video from Cat Williams. I apologize for the profanity toward the end of it. Can't be avoided, but go ahead and take a listen.
Our government pimps, they get on the news, they act like we ain't even over there killing real people. They don't never get on the news and say today we killed 4 men, 3 women, and 2 children. They use a word niggas can't readily identify. Today we killed a group of insurgents. Niggas be at the house like, I don't even know no motherfucking insurgents. You can kill all them motherfuckers. I don't have not one insurgent friend.
All right. So I think that clip demonstrates exactly what's going on here. This is propaganda. So that was Fox News. They went out and they were asking, of course, they're trying to make sure that, residents are fully scared. They're like, he was a terrorist. He beat his wife. He did all these things. They're presenting them as if they're true. They're using scary words, terrorist, even though before 2025, nobody thought of them as terrorists in the same context as we think of terrorist. Somebody that goes like when Hamas jumped the wall and attacked Israel in October of 2023, that was terrorism, plain and simple. They went over there. They slaughtered a bunch of people. They did it so that the Israeli people would be in fear, right? That was terrorism. But what has Abrego Garcia done? That's actually terrorism. He has no charges of any kind. And even if he's a domestic violence, like maybe he's an abuser, I don't know. But an abuser is not a terrorist. They're two different things. A terrorist is seeking to influence a whole population by committing violent and dangerous acts that puts people in mass in fear. An abuser abuses one or two people at most. They're vile, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that one is okay and one is not. I'm suggesting they're two different things. They need to be treated completely differently because they're not at all close. But what's happening is the old media, which Tim was playing a role in, he was basically doing the same thing. They're going out and they're using terminology that doesn't fit. They are basically the new propagandist. That's all that's happened. Propagandists have just changed hands. New media, same as the old media. Let's check out some comments and let's see what we've got here. So I think that'll be good. Let's see what we got. Joe, I'm going to try to get to these. I swear yesterday on the show, I saw right as I was closing out, I saw like answer the question or something like that. I don't remember what that was. But I will try to get to every question that, like, maybe not every question, but I will try to get to the important ones. But just know that it can be a challenge. Sometimes you guys are chatty, and that's cool. So, let's see, what do we got here? Let's see. Joe News calls this government splaining. Yeah, it's basically what I do. I'm a government splainer. So somebody's got to do it, right? I mean, I can't rely on the new media, the alt media. Can't rely on the old media. I mean, I guess I am the alt media. I don't consider myself a journalist. I'm just a yapping head. Let's see. Taxation is robbery. It is no longer my money. Right. When they steal, I mean, technically it is your money, but yeah, when they steal it, then it becomes their money-ish. Let's see. Did she not watch the Biden-Trump debate? Yeah, that was about, that's regarding Senator Warren. And she's talking about, when Biden debated Trump. And we all walked away. We were like, dude, yeah, no, he needs to step down. He might even need to step down now as president. Like a lot of us were already like, we're like, wow, he's bad. He can't even like, it's bad enough that he should not only not run, it's bad enough that he should actually step down now. Of course, that didn't happen. Let's see here. What else do we got? Let's see here. Yes. Joe says it's a sham. Political theater. It's a circus, really. I think he was overdressed. Well, we might have to differ on the dressing. But again, I don't think that's the big deal. Like that, since people mentioned it, I will throw in my 2 cents. If nobody else had mentioned it, I don't think I would have even thought about it. I would have been like, whatever. Just don't really care too much. And his popularity grew from his signature look, right? Like if I was at the White House, if I was a member of the media at a White House press conference, I would probably wear what I'm wearing now, like a button-up shirt, a sport coat, and I might actually still wear my hat. I don't know. Like I'm getting away with it right now because I'm on a podcast. But if Rockler, the company that I'm wearing, if they ever saw it, they might reach out and be like, yo, stop wearing that because, we don't want your opinions associated with, we're just a woodworking company. So they're a good company. I like them. And they may or may not have the same views as I do. So let's see. Yeah. My VA lady says, I'm tired of Tim Pool sucking viewers from 2 other podcast bros I moderate for. I thought someone bought Timcast and he was retiring. Nope. Exclusively only on Rumble. Yeah. He needs to stop doing that. Save those people for me. and other small time bros. I agree. All right, folks. I think that's the end of my show. I'm going to be out. Thank you so much for joining. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you are there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. You can also become part of the community by heading over to libertydad.locals.com. Remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.